73% of students are disengaged at school. Now, the problem with that is that if you love or just like what you're learning and doing, you're going to persist more, enjoy it more, study more, and therefore get better grades. So how do you actually do that? We're going to be talking about how to learn to love learning and love going to school. And the first thing I have to teach you is the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. There's been a few studies that have been done that have gotten famous around these two motivations. Intrinsic motivation is when you do something for its own sake because it is enjoyable in its own sake, regardless of the output or rewards from it. Maybe this is pottery for some people, sometimes it's video games for others, maybe it's archery or badminton or painting or singing for others. Extrinsic motivation is when you are motivated by external outputs. The task itself is not what causes you to keep going. It's the act of working through it and then getting something at the end, whether that's a lot of money, a little bit of money, food, candy, report card grade. Those are extrinsic motivators. And studies have shown that intrinsic motivation is the better motivation for increasing your persistence and creativity. And that's why companies like Google actually go out of their way to create a 20% free time for their employees where they can work on whatever they want that within the creative space. But they're not incentivized to do this monetarily because the time itself is its own reward. And that actually helps spur a lot of valuable Google features such as Gmail, Google Earth, Google Street View, and a bunch of others through that free time. So how does this relate to you? Well, you have to reframe and readjust how you think about learning in school. You may be thinking about it in one way, but you have to switch it so that you can think of several reasons why learning on its own is its own reward. So I'll go first, and I challenge you to leave some comments on why you think learning is its own reward. I guarantee you there's at least 20 reasons that are really good ones, but here's a few of my own. When I learn something new, I learn something that could potentially help me in life. Some things I learn in history or in English, it helps my communication skills or my understanding of business history and how the stock market worked or how businesses succeed and fail. And those types of mistakes of individuals help me succeed by not making those mistakes. Another way that learning helps me by its own sake is that learning is fascinating and entertaining. You get to see how different civilizations succeeded or failed or conducted their lives differently. You get to see how certain fundamental principles of physics or economics work so that you can think about them in the real world. So that's another way I found that learning helped me. And keep in mind, a lot of these I had to adopt over time. I didn't have them initially. A third way that learning is helpful is that I'm increasing how interesting I am as a person, as well as all the interesting facts, which lets me sometimes interrelate different fields of study in unique ways. Sometimes I think of something in music that relates to something I found in business and vice versa. So that's a third way that learning is helpful to me. A fourth way that learning is a joy on its own is that learning is how you grow from someone who's naive or kind of not as well known to someone who's more confident, calm, and wise about the world. When you see a tree, when you see something mundane, it's not just a tree anymore. You can see all the biology behind how that tree operates. You can see the history of the tree, the wars that were fought around this tree over the century. And then I think the last way that learning is helpful in its own right is that it makes you more competitive, it makes you more engaged and just more skilled in life, but also it just makes you push harder, because the more you learn, the more you just get sharper in life, and then you try and compete against yourself or sometimes others, depending on what type of person you are, and you just try and learn more and get even better at what you do. So those are just 5 reasons. I'm borrowing this off another video because that video also challenged the comments, and the comments just exploded with thousands of comments, and each of them had unique reasons why learning was fun and engaging for them that they had invented or came up with right there and then. And some of them were just so unique and useful as perspectives to reframe your learning. And that's how you turn it into an intrinsic motivation. I want to leave you with one last bonus tip before we sign off here. And maybe this will just push you over the edge to really start to love learning and get that edge over other students. When I was in school, in high school, I remember I was in the library and there's all these history books on the shelf. And I was in one of the classes, and I told some of my classmates at the same table, wow, like, who likes history? Like, it's all these boring textbooks and it's so boring. At the time, I didn't like history. And I just thought it was like pointless. We're memorizing all these boring facts, and that was that. Now, years later, I have a great love of history because various YouTubers and other books have reframed how I think about history. Anyone who's seen the play Hamilton and how Lin-Manuel Miranda wrapped the story of Hamilton's life, that was an amazing story, but it was told in a way that was more modern and compelling. And I was like, wow, history is actually really cool. That guy did all of that, and he came from like nothing. And so those stories, as well as there's a YouTube channel called History Buffs that kind of analyzes movies to see how accurate or inaccurate they are. They really got me more entertained and interested in history. And I also started to see how history can relate to business, career, politics, war, and all these applicable things. So just goes to show you can change your mind. Your passions can change over time. Try it out, and best of luck.